Good morning, this is Mona and this is my morning view. Today, spring edition 2026, it is chilly. I'm wearing a t-shirt, but it's still chilly. And today is Memory Monday. So, today, Memory Monday. I'm just looking at the clouds speeding by because there's a breeze. And it must be windier up there than it is here because they're going pretty quick. I'm sitting down. I'm sitting down because I need to be, and I will be blinded. So we don't want to do that. Oh, look at that. Cloud covered up the sun for probably about 2 seconds. All right, so, Memory Monday. Today, I wrote the word change for the title. And, because one thing's for sure in life is things change. Things change. So I was thinking about something this weekend. About how there was a time when if you called out sick, it was frowned upon. Like they looked at how many times you called out sick and they treated you accordingly. Like, you know, maybe not a bonus, maybe a small bonus, maybe just their attitude towards you. So, for the most part, people in my generation, they didn't call out sick. They just went to work sick. So, I had this rule as if I was spewing out on either end of my body, my cue. It was my only criteria for calling out to work. All right, so I do have to move because I'm having internet issues over in the corner. So we'll just stand in this shady area. Let's see. Have to over more. Over more, closer to the door. All right. So, I know you're going to get my chimes because they're probably louder than what I hear them going through my hearing aids as a speaker, an amplifier, if you will. All right, so just searching for service. That's what I'm doing here. Just like I moved from that place to that place to that place. Change. All right. So I was thinking about how people our age, I really need to extend my arm. So I'm going to put this down and I'm going to hold my arm up with this arm and see if that will help. Because otherwise it naturally just comes closer to my face. And I know nobody likes that. I don't like it, but it's what I got. All right. So, yeah, we would go to work sick with a fever. And it would be like, you didn't get accolades for going. You didn't get an extra bonus for going. You didn't, you were supposed to be there. That wasn't above and beyond. That was you doing your job. Of course, if you weren't there, shame on you. You don't have a very good work ethic. That's how we were raised. That's how we did things. It was like, it didn't matter if you were sick. If it didn't matter if you were injured, you go to work if any way possible. So you looked at it any way possible. Oh, that just reminded me of a time I was coming back from lunch in the Marine Corps with a massive, I think it was a migraine. I don't even know. I think what it was is I was probably having blood sugar issues. And it took me a really long time to get back to the unit from where the barracks was. It wasn't a far distance, but it was taking me a really long time because I could barely walk, I could barely see, and I missed formation. That's a big no-no. And I came back to the back by the tool room, and the sergeant there was about to scream at me. I know he started to, that I missed formation. And the next thing I knew, I woke up in the dispensary, the modern day health clinic, for military people. So it was one of those things of, I made it there. I made it there. All right. So, I probably would have gotten in big trouble had I not passed out and been taken to the doctor. Okay, so then, oh, this is just a memory lane here. I remember my husband. He had to work nights. And he wasn't always working nights. So there was times he works days and he works nights on special occasions. So he had to work nights and he was sick. He literally was sick, had a fever, the whole bit. Worked all night. Next morning, before he came home, he had to take a test for law enforcement. He was only doing this because for several years, when he got out of the military, they said that he was too old to be on the law enforcement. So because he was too old, he couldn't he couldn't be in local law enforcement. And all his friends that were military, that they're all like, no, your military service counts. Your military service counts. And so he's like, he checked in on it. Now, mind you, this is in the last century, right? This wasn't, the 2000s. So we didn't have Google. We didn't have, that internet search engine that we have today to find out the facts about things. And so, when he got out the first time from the Marine Corps and he checked into the state police force, he had a problem with glasses. He couldn't see 20/20. Actually, it was when he was in the Army, because that's when he knew before that he needed glasses, but he actually got glasses when he was in the Army after the Marine Corps. So, but it was relatively early, and he was checking in on, maybe he would go into the state police, and they had an eye thing. They said you can't be wearing glasses, and so from that we found out that just a couple of short years after that, maybe even months, they changed that, and as long as you wore glasses for the correction, you were good. But not when he checked it. When he checked it, you couldn't do that. So he goes, after working nights, he goes in to take the test, because all his friends in New Jersey were saying, and outside of New Jersey, your military time counts. Well, he retired, right? So you're talking, that's making him really young. Probably too young. So anyways, he goes to take the test after working nights, having a fever, goes and takes the test. Mind you, he didn't do great. I mean, it didn't do horrible. Well, maybe he did. But it was still enough for them to say, okay, you can have interviews. Because if it was so horrible, I'm sure he wouldn't even have gotten interviews. So he goes to do interviews. He kind of shoots himself in the foot a little bit. He goes in, and they asked him why it took so long. Because now he's over 40 years old, right? He's 40 years old. And he's like, well, because I was told I was too old. But I found out that you could, you go back with your military service. And they're like, well, we'll check that out. Now, in the meantime, there was this young girl who really liked this guy on the police force. So she wanted to be on the police force so bad. And she went and took tests, improved her scores, went and took courses, like you could pay to learn how to take the test itself. So there was several people that did that, and they were known to do that. They were always testing, taking courses, paying for courses. And my husband, he's like, hey, he's got a family to feed. He's not going to go take this course. Now, let me tell you, I am an advocate for if you want something and something is available to you, you do it, right? You do it. This isn't bashing this individual. This is saying, hey, she wanted something and she was able to go do those extra steps to make it happen. She got the highest score. Highest score. Now, mind you, my husband, over 40, was running every day after he came home from work when he didn't work nights. So he ran every day, a minimum of like 2 miles, because I think that's how long it is to get all the way around the lake. And there was a lot of people that couldn't do that. This individual could not do that. She was not physically fit, right? But she got that high score. A lot of study, a lot of taking courses, a lot of taking the test over and over again in order to get that high score. She got the job. She got the job. My husband did not get the job. They came back and said the reason why you're not getting the job is because you're too old. It only counts for your, what do you call that? Your combat time. And he had combat time. And had he gone into law enforcement as soon as he had gotten out, he would have been underneath that age limit. But because he waited, because he was told he was too old, now he was too old. So, with that, this other person got the job. I remember her coming in one time where I worked, and she was like, yeah, they had this one military guy that was on the interview, and he got like the lowest score. But, they gave him the interview because he was a military guy. And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, that would be my husband when he was sick and had worked that night. I wonder how well you would have fared. Only because it was that, only because he's a military guy. This girl was like 21 years old. Now, they did hire a military guy, but younger. So they filled like 3 different spots. So they hired a female, they hired a military guy who was actually a relative of somebody on the council. And then they hired somebody to cover other than white. Okay? They hired a Hispanic guy. But the Hispanic guy had already gone through the police academy, so they weren't going to have to pay for his police academy stuff. Right? This almost sounds like a Feisty Friday, but it's not. She got the high score. They hired a military guy, underage. They hired somebody who had already gone through the police academy so they wouldn't have to spend the money. I think that was pretty good management in the hiring factor. Sucked for my husband, but, she's still on the force today. That's a long time ago. Long time ago. He had another opportunity to take the test. Either a test or an interview. I don't remember which it was. It may have been an interview. Bad timing. It was the day his sister was getting married, and he was giving away the bride. So, that didn't happen. Okay. Now I'm getting emotional because I mentioned his sister. Okay, so, get my composure again. Talking about change, right? Stuff changes. If you want to go for something, you go for it. Because you know what happens? Later on, they're going to change the requirements. They're going to change the requirements. Which now brings me to today. If you get sick, in any way, shape, or form, especially with a fever, you are to stay home. Stay home. It's not just the spewing. And now that I work at a school, they have the criteria of if you have over 100, the students have to stay home, right? So if it's over 100, I stay home. So if it's over 100 for them, it's over 100 for me. So I stay home. Because sometimes sickness isn't sickness. Sometimes it's not contagious. Sometimes it's allergies. Especially here. So there's still a little bit of criteria for me on when I go to work and when I don't. When I have an allergy, when I have something that may be an allergy, I wear a mask. I wear a mask to go to work. Because I still have that in my head from back in the day that you show up for work, especially when you're shorthanded. When you're already shorthanded, you don't want to burden others. And I keep hearing people saying, look, if you're sick, you're sick. Stay home. If you need a rest day, stay home. If your little pinky hurts, stay home. You know, nobody's going to think about it. Nobody's going to think twice about calling out for their purposes and reasons for, their emotional day, taking an emotional day. Nobody is going to think about how it burdens you. Go ahead and do it. But I'm old school. Yeah, I'm old school. So there is a criteria of me going to work or not going to work. But today, if you go to work sick, you are a villain. If you stay home, you're the hero. Change. It's funny how things change on things that you thought would never change. And my husband worked for Lucent. Oh, good company, good company. It doesn't exist anymore. Doesn't exist. Military doesn't change. They're the same. Hardcore. Changes happen. And whether we like it or not, change happens. And how do we adjust to those changes? Now I'm starting to get to thinking. Gotta pace. So, what did she not eat? The one thing she was supposed to eat. She licked her liver's worth off of it. Okay. We'll have to fix that. Alright, so. She knows. She knows it's being covered up with liverwurst now. She just licks it off. Oh my gosh. Yes, you silliness. Star of the show. There she is. Where'd she go? There she is. Star of the show. She doesn't seem to be limping as badly, which is good. Maybe this new medication, other than that pill, is helping her. So what do we do with change, right? How do we respond to change? There's some changes we don't like. Some changes we don't like. I kind of like the change of if you're sick, stay home. I do. Because as I get older, being sick takes a little bit more out of me than it used to. Especially since I work with children and I could start a pandemic. Especially since I work outside. There's all these different elements to that. I waited in going back to school because I just didn't have the time and finances to do it. And now that I was thinking about maybe going for it, they've changed it and I need yet an extra class. And my degree will not be from where it was because it all reverted back because they no longer associate with that particular university. So now it would just be from the community college itself. So that would be a little bummer because it wouldn't have that little UK symbol on the corner. Change. I'm not going back to school for a career change. I'm not doing it. I'm going back for me, just to have a little certificate. Maybe a little bit bigger certificate if I decide. But for now, little certificate. All right. But change happens. And a lot of times we don't like the change that has happened. So it'll take me a little longer. It'll take me a little more to get that little piece of paper. But if I'm sick, I stay home. And it's not frowned upon. I mean, unless I was habitually sick and was always out, then of course there's a reason for you not being employed there anymore, because they need to pay somebody to be there. Sometimes we want to initiate change. And sometimes we need to initiate change for ourselves. I have not been walking. I have not been exercising because my ankle was swollen. But that is going to change. I'm going to start exercising lightly, as long as it doesn't aggravate the ankle. So if I can start with that. Next week, we're starting next week. I know you're supposed to start right now. When you have a change, you're supposed to start right now. But I have 1 week left of school. Just want to get through the week, right? Get the pattern going again for when the school year starts and I'm already in a routine. I have 1 more week of spring. 1 more week of spring, and then the seasons change. Change. Next week, on my last day of school, on Monday, it will be summer. It'll be summer next week when I do my next Memory Monday. So the seasons are changing. Is there anything changing for your season? Is there anything changing that you want to do differently? Is there things in this life, your town, your country, that's changing? And how do you adapt to that change? All right, that's all I got for you today. Make sure you go over to YouTube, Mona E. Harrison, white hair, beautiful face. You'll know you're in the right spot. Subscribe, like, share, comment. Get all the bells and whistles. Like, share, and comment both here on Facebook and on YouTube, because it helps the algorithm. All right, blessings, everybody. Have a great day. I will see you tomorrow for Tips Tuesday. Bye.